Well, apparently I decided to color coordinate myself with this quilt today. We are back and it is now time to quilt this jelly roll-ish race quilt. And it actually, I mean, last video, I love how it turned out. So we're now gonna check it off the list and get it all done. So first off, if you looked close during some of my time lapses, some of these seams were a little scantish, less than 1/4 inch for sure. So I'm gonna quilt it kind of with something a little bit more dense to make sure it really holds those seams tight. So I'm thinking my marmalade design, I don't really want to do a feather one. I do have one if it ends up looking better. It's called Feather Wave, I believe, but those are kind of the two that I'm leaning towards because it kind of echoes, the marmalade kind of echoes the swirls and the dots in the green prints, but the Feather Wave would kind of go with the paisley. So we'll see. I've got like a Tidewater tealish color that I think is going to look really good on it. And then for my backing, I happened to buy this piece of wide back at Joann's when they were closing, and it hits some of these lighter colors in here. So I think this with the Tidewater color thread on the back is going to look so good, and it's going to all just come together. This ended up measuring 36 by 46, so I'm still shocked at how proportionate that ended up, but what are you gonna do? That's pretty amazing. So this is like a smidge over a yard, so it's gonna be tight, but it's gonna work. And I don't know what I'm gonna bind it in. I'm still down to that. Maybe if I have enough of like a black or a black and white. I do have a lot of black Kona, so I may just go with a solid just to frame this up because there is so much going on. That I think is the way that I'm leaning. So we'll start by getting this loaded in, and then find some batting pieces. I should have something that's close in this size, and then we'll get quilting. So this is gonna get done in no time, and I think it's kind of hyping up my sojo and getting it back on track, so then we'll be back to more fun projects real soon. Basting is complete. I've got my design all set. I'm going to do the marmalade one at about 10.5 inches, which I think my spacing in between my little swirlies are going to be about an inch, if that. So I think it'll do pretty okay at holding this tight. So now I just got to do it. So I've got it all locked and loaded. I've got that Tidewater red color, that kind of tealish. You can kind of see it on the basting here, so I think it's going to look really good. It's going to blend with most of these darker ones that kind of pop a little bit in the brighter, but this little crazy jelly rollish thing is on its way to completion, and then it's the ever-present binding question. So let's at least get the quilting done, shall we? it to the bottom in all its crooked glory. As you can see, we've got a lot of excess over here. And then when we get to the other side, it is a little bit into the strip. But what did we expect with this weird piecing? So I've now got to unroll all of this 108 and get it going. Here's a little peek at the back. Look, it looks so good with that purple and the tealy color. And then it's time to trim it up and make the binding decision. So I'm running out of backup plans of stalling. So I got to start searching through my scraps to find binding. So unpinning shall begin. And then before we know it, I'm going to meet you at my sewing machine with a binding surprise. Well, I'm sure many of you were wondering by the beginning of this week, let alone the beginning of this video, if I actually pulled it off and finished a project this month, specifically a Scrappy project. And I am pleased to say that yes, I did. So we've got our binding on there, all our scrappiness, all of our quilting. It is done. And I do feel my sojo has come back just a smidge. Hopefully enough to keep my scrap projects going next month. I've also got a bunch of 3-yard quilts for my guild retreat that I haven't finished yet, and that retreat was back in April. So those are going to be coming up soon. But in the meantime, let's talk about this and how cute that marmalade pantograph is on there. And I think it's going to do a good job of holding everything together. You can definitely see some like waving in it. It's probably from the batting, but it's really cute. I'm really happy with it. I only had one little oopsie with my backing, and that was I didn't clip it right. And so I've got a little bit of a pucker in here, but if this was anybody else's quilt, I absolutely would have picked that out. If this was anything more than what this is, I would have picked that out and fixed it. But since this is just a little check it off the list, get my sojo back kind of project, I'm okay with that. I think when it washes up, I think it'll be fine anyways. So there's that. We're not all perfect. So, yeah. And as you can see, I settled on a stripy binding, which was my hope that I would have enough for. And I cut it at 2 1/4 instead of 2 1/2 because I wanted it to be a little narrower, especially since these were 2-inch strips that I started with. So, I wanted to kind of match that. I almost thought about going even smaller, but I think the 2 1/4 was perfect. This fabric, I can tell you, is a Kimberbell fabric from Maywood Studios. I think they're like tent stripes or something, or awning stripes. I like how they're variegated in size, a small, a skinny, and then a regular. I think it adds a little something extra with a stripe binding, so I am quite pleased. And then for reals, I'll show you the backing with this purple. I think it looks so good with the teal Tidewater on there. It kind of just gives it a little something and brings it all together. So I love how this turned out. I don't think I could have been as successful with this if I had tried, because as you remember, I didn't know how much binding I had. I didn't know what was on that cassette tape from 2011. I mean, the cassette tape's much older, but it's been wound on there for almost 15 years. But it is done, it's checked off, and we are moving on to the next project. So I am still gonna spin that wheel and see if it's something that hopefully keeps me motivated. I do have some other projects that I've shopped for that will hopefully spark some excitement and make their way on here as well. So new projects, 3-yard quilt projects, maybe some scrappy projects. I'm just trying not to overload myself because it's summer and it's been some really odd weather here in Northern California. Like it's been really tolerable. It hasn't been super hot. I keep my fingers crossed that it's not gonna get super hot next month. So let's hope it stays with that trend. So I'm trying to enjoy the summer because summer's not my jam, but this is kind of cooler weather is my jam. So we're gonna get some sojo going, fingers crossed. But in the meantime, we're going to show you the full reveal photo so you can see this little scrappy stripy thing in all its glory. It ended up, remember, it ended up being 36 by 46. I wish I could give you how long my strip was to get it that size, but I have no idea. So we'll give you final photos, spin that wheel, and see what happens. So we'll spin it, and I will hopefully see you real soon in August.